Hello, welcome to Advanced Topics in Governmental Accounting. I am your professor, Dean Mead. Uh, for those of you who have not had a course with me before, um, I've been at Rutgers since the fall of 2008. I teach three courses. Occasionally I teach the introductory governmental accounting and auditing course, but mostly I teach in the fall governmental financial analysis, which is a course that I actually created for the Rutgers Governmental Masters of Accountancy program. And in the spring, as you obviously know, I teach Advanced Topics, which is a course that was created by a former colleague of mine at the GASB, who taught it for the first couple of years. And then I took over the course. I've been teaching it for 7 or 8 years now, and of course, in that time, all of the topics have changed multiple times. But chances are that at any given spring semester, when I teach this, there are going to be some very relevant and timely topics, and you will certainly see that this semester when we spend more than half of the weeks focused on two immense projects that the GASB is working on right now. Its financial reporting model reexamination and its project on revenue and expense recognition. So as you can guess, my daytime job is at the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, where I'm the senior research manager, and which means I'm kind of second in command underneath the Director of Research and Technical Activities, but we're a relatively small organization of 25 people, and there are no junior research managers, so it's a relatively flat hierarchical organization with anybody really having direct access to the Director of Research and Technical Activities, so it's not as if they have to go through me to get to him. But I have been there now going on 22 years, and started as a project manager, and after I think 7 or 8 years was promoted to replace the person I mentioned earlier briefly, who created this course originally for the Governmental Masters of Accountancy program as a research manager, and then about 4 or so years ago, my title was changed to senior research manager. So that probably just indicates that I've been around for a long time. So at GASB, I oversee all of our research activities and coordinate most of our outreach activities to our constituents to get them involved in standard setting and to keep them apprised of our standard setting activities and of the efforts to support their implementation of new pronouncements. It will probably come through in a lot of the comments I make in lectures and in the discussion threads, but I'm not an accountant. My background is as a financial statement user, as an analyst of government finances, government service provision, efficiency and effectiveness. I worked for a citizen research group in New York City prior to being hired at the GASB, and so I do have that perspective of what the standards produce in terms of valuable information for assessing accountability, for making decisions, for performing analyses, and so on. Yet, obviously, I've been working there for 22 years, and I've been teaching it as a member of the accounting faculty at Rutgers for over 11 years. So I do know a thing or two about accounting, and the fact that I'm not a CPA probably won't make much of a difference. The course is divided into 5 units, each related to a specific topic. We're going to begin the semester by looking at the GASB's re-examination of the financial reporting model, which is the blueprint for the annual audited financial statements, with a particular focus on what is the central part of what the GASB has proposed so far, which is a change to the measurement focus and basis of accounting of the governmental fund financial statements. The next unit will look at deferred inflows of resources and deferred outflows of resources, which, although at this point not new, continues to be a source of confusion and is certainly something that distinguishes GASB's standards from those of any other standard setter, and for that reason makes it an interesting topic, not just substantively in and of itself, but also in terms of how the GASB sets standards and the objectives it's trying to achieve when it sets standards, particularly for state and local governments, as opposed to the entities that other standard setters set their standards for. Unit 3 will be looking at the GASB's standards on leases under Statement 87, which make a significant change to the way that leases are reported. GASB is not the only standard setter that has done this in recent years. FASB changed their leases standards substantially, although, as we will learn, GASB's go further. And the IASB, the International Accounting Standards Board, also significantly changed their standards, and in a way that's, in terms of scope and breadth, probably more comparable to the GASB standards than to the FASB's. Spoiler alert, what the new standards do is eliminate the long-standing distinction between operating and capital leases, and they treat all leases as financings of the right to use another entity's capital assets, and therefore, with a couple of exceptions, all leases will be accounted for exactly the same way, rather than depending upon whether they are classified as operating or capital. In Unit 4, we're going to look at standard setting itself and the importance of independence in standard setting and instances in which there's been a blurring of the lines between standard setting and policy and politics, and in which the independence of GASB standard setting was under threat. This certainly is not something limited to GASB. But you guys probably are not old enough to remember when FASB was working on stock compensation, but there were some very memorable public hearings they did out in California where the tech companies were primarily located, and which were the primary example of companies providing stock options as compensation. And if I recall correctly, some protesters were hanging board members in effigy. And that's never happened to the GASB, but that just tells you that GASB is not alone in sometimes being faced by very vociferous opposition. And then lastly, we're going to look at that other really big project on GASB's agenda, revenue and expense recognition, starting with a proposal, nearly not a proposal, kind of a discussion document that GASB issued now almost 2 years ago to broach the issue of how to approach revenue and expense recognition, and then to look at what the GASB has done in terms of redeliberating over the issue in light of the comments it received on that initial due process document, to develop a proposal that it will issue around June of 2020 for a comprehensive model for recognizing revenue and expense for state and local governments. The grades in the course apply to two basic activities that you engage in: discussion threads, which are 25%, and assignments, which are 75% of the grade. There are, and I'll say more about that in a moment, there's no required text, nothing you have to buy. Everything is either provided to you on the course website or you have a link to it online. You will be asked to use the Governmental Accounting Research System, or GARS, which is found on the GASB's website. And there are instructions in the course website about how to access that. But if you just go to gasb.org and look under the Pronouncements tab, you will see a link to GARS. The basic view of GARS is free, and you don't even now need to register to use it. But as Rutgers students, there's a good chance that Rutgers has purchased the professional view, and so you may be able as a Rutgers student to sign up to use the professional view, which allows you to annotate and make notes and things like that, which could be useful. You can see readings are assigned for most of the weeks of the course, and there are some introductory readings in the Getting Started module that I'd like you to look at before you jump into Unit 1. And Unit 1 is almost 2 weeks long, so you've got plenty of time to do those readings. There are lectures, several of them, as you can see during the course of the semester. They are recorded in advance and are available online. The lecture slides for each of those lectures are available in the files section of the course website. In terms of the threaded discussion, what I'm really looking for, and if you have taken financial analysis with me, you know, I want this really to be a discussion, and you'll see I'll participate quite a bit in the beginning of the semester and then try to back off as the semester moves along, because this should be a discussion for you, not a back and forth between you and me. And I will, certainly step in and offer thoughts and perhaps redirect conversation if it's going off target, or straying off into other subjects. But I really want to see you raising issues, challenging one another, although politely. All the rules of decorum should be observed in the discussion threads. This is not a place for trolls. And if your fellow classmates don't call you out on that, I will. So to get full credit, in each week, you're required to post an initial entry by Thursday at midnight. And that's if you're not Eastern time. If you're in a different time zone, it's midnight your time. And then you have to post at least 2 more times by midnight on the following Sunday. So if Thursday is the 5th, then the second and third entries need to be done by midnight on the 8th. Do look at the syllabus for the posting dates for week 1, because week 1 is almost 2 weeks long, and there is an introductory thread to introduce yourself to your fellow students and to me, and I'd like to see that done the first week of class this week, and then the substantive discussion is due next week. Now, sometimes people look at these threaded discussions as if they're just kind of a side dish. And you got to remember, this is worth 1/4 of your grade. And so if you're not participating fully every week, meaning that you've posted meaningful feedback, meaningful input 3 times at least, you're not going to get full credit. And certainly if you don't respond at all, it's really going to harm your ability to get a good grade in this course, because it is worth 1/4 of the grade. That means every single one of these discussion threads is worth almost 2% of your grade. There is no reason not to post these. They're not complex. This isn't like extra homework assignments. It requires some thought, but this is discussion. This is, sharing with one another your impressions of the topics that we're looking at, and learning from one another and learning from me. There's some real value in the discussion threads, and if you speak to anyone who's taken one of my courses before, they will tell you that the discussion threads are a highlight of the course, certainly more than my lectures. I do provide some extra. This is your one opportunity for extra credit, is in the discussion thread. So if you have additional meaningful entries, and meaningful means something more than I agree with you, that's a really good point. It means you've posted something that's thoughtful, that adds to what they've said, that reflects on it, and so forth, and that adds to the discussion, rather than just affirming or noting that somebody responded. That won't get you credit for the required posts, let alone for extra credit. Please note that there are some weeks when there are 2 discussion threads and you have to respond to both of them, and both of them are graded, meaning Each of them is that 1.8% of your total grade, not 1.8% combined. Each of them is graded on its own. And also, to make your life a little bit easier, in the weeks when assignments are due, there are no discussion threads those weeks, so that your focus can be on preparing your assignment and turning that in by midnight on Sunday of the week it's due. And speaking of which, the assignments are really geared toward helping you to demonstrate that you understand what you've been learning in that unit, and not just to regurgitate the technical mumbo jumbo of Gatsby's documents and perhaps of my lectures as well, but also to communicate about it in a manner that someone who's not an accountant will understand, like the members of the city council of the city that you're auditing, or like some clients you may be dealing with. Many people that you deal with in life are not accountants, and trying to talk to them about accounting related issues, particularly those that have policy implications, by using technical accounting speak, is a lost cause. So part of the challenge of these assignments is not only to demonstrate your knowledge, but to demonstrate that you understand it well enough to talk about it like a normal human being would speak. The assignments in total are worth 75% of the grade, although the first assignment is worth a little bit less, which you will appreciate because I am a rather tough grader, and for some of you, the grades on that first assignment may be shocking, but I will post something in the announcements section of the website this week or next week that will help you to understand what I'm looking for, and to not lose hope if you don't get a great grade on that first assignment, because my experience has been that if you do the things that I suggest in those first couple of assignments, by the end of the course, you're going to be getting great grades on those assignments. And everybody else is in the same boat. So don't feel like if you get a bad grade on that first assignment that you're going to fail the course. This should be a learning experience, and I think it's part of my responsibility as your professor to help you become better writers and better communicators about the subject matter that you're learning. And I don't do you any favors if I'm not in fact tough on you about the writing and about the way that you communicate the subject matter that you're learning. So I'm looking for assignments that are written thoughtfully, that have thorough answers to the questions, but yet still concise. Because most of these people that you'd be trying to communicate with who aren't accountants don't want to read a 15-page treatise. They want you to very briefly and succinctly and clearly explain to them in their language what this subject is all about. It's important that you do exactly what the assignment says. So if the assignment says organize the paper this way, organize the paper that way. Don't cost yourself easy points by not doing what the assignment says, by not answering all of the questions, by not doing each of the things that you're required to do. And structure is one of those. I beg you to use subject or section headings to make it clear to me what questions you're answering, what parts of the assignment you're writing about. That makes it easier for me to ensure that you've done everything that you need to and that you get the best grade possible, which obviously is in your best interest. If there are any calculations involved, which there is in the leases writing assignment, then the accuracy of those calculations certainly is important. And a part of the grade is based on grammar and spelling and usage and stuff like that. And so if you're uncertain about your writing, then I strongly suggest you find someone who's a good writer to review your assignments before you turn them in. And as I mentioned before, the first assignment is worth a little bit less, and that last assignment's worth a little bit more. So the point value increases a little bit as ostensibly you're becoming more adept writers and better at communicating in plain language about the subject matter. If you need to reach me, the best way to do so is by my GASB email. I almost always will respond within 24 hours and usually much faster than that. If the issue that you're raising it requires a conversation, I'm more than happy to speak with you. It's just often, most of the questions I receive can be dealt with by email. But if we need to have a conversation, I'd be glad to do so, and then we'll arrange a time to speak on the telephone. But reaching out to me by email first is definitely the easiest way to get a response. Also, for your benefit and for the benefit of the other students in the course, every unit has a discussion thread that's called Ask the Professor a Question, specifically about the topic that unit. And the benefit of posting there is that everyone else in the course gets to benefit from my response to your question, because generally a question you have is a question that other people have as well. And sometimes even if you send me an email with a question, if it's one that I think everyone else in the course would benefit from hearing, I'll post the question. I won't identify you, but I'll post the question in that thread along with my answer. So, good luck this semester. I'm looking forward to getting to know you and working with you. Please read all of this material at the beginning of the class and let me know if you have any questions.